I want you to picture something with me for a second. Picture the wall in your home where you keep the photos that matter most. The ones you look at every single morning without even thinking about it. For me, that wall was in my mother-in-law's front hallway. And for 4 years it held a framed picture of the happiest day of my life. My wedding day. Me in my grandmother's veil. My husband Daniel laughing so hard his eyes had almost disappeared. Both of us covered in confetti outside a little chapel in Asheville, North Carolina. Then one Thanksgiving, I walked into that hallway, glanced at the wall the way you glance at anything familiar, and my whole body went cold. Because the woman in the photo was not me. The dress was not my dress. And the smile Daniel was giving her belonged to a version of him from before I ever existed. My mother-in-law had taken down my wedding photos and put up pictures of my husband's ex-girlfriend. And here's the part that still keeps me up some nights. There were 14 people in that house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, Daniel's own brother. Every single one of them had walked past that wall that morning. Every single one of them had seen it. And not one person said a word. My name is Rebecca. I am 34 years old. And I want to tell you exactly how a family can look you in the eye and pretend you were never there. Stay with me. Because the truth of what my mother-in-law was actually doing did not come out for almost a year. And when it did, it changed everything. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. In a house where money was always a little tight and love was never in short supply. My mom cleaned offices at night. My dad drove a delivery route for a bakery for 26 years. We did not have much, but we had Sunday dinners. And we had this rule in our family that you never let somebody sit alone. If a new kid showed up at church, if a neighbor lost their husband, if a cousin got divorced, you pulled up a chair and you made room. That was who we were. I carried that with me my whole life. I became a pediatric nurse because I wanted to be the person who made scared kids feel safe. I put myself through nursing school, working doubles at a diner, and taking out loans I am honestly still paying off. Nobody handed me anything. I want you to understand that because it matters later. I met Daniel when I was 27. He came into the emergency department at 2 in the morning with a broken wrist from a rec league basketball game. And he was so calm and so polite while he was clearly in a lot of pain that I noticed him immediately. He made a joke about how he was going to have to learn to text with his other hand. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. He asked for my number while I was still holding his chart, which was against about 6 different rules. And I gave it to him anyway. Daniel was everything my family valued.
Kind.
Steady. He worked as a civil engineer for the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, designing the systems that keep water clean and roads from flooding. He remembered small things. Like the fact that I hate cilantro, and I love those cheap gas station cappuccinos. 6 months in. He drove 9 hours to Dayton just to have coffee with my dad, because he said that was the right way to do things. There was only one shadow over all of it. And her name was Patricia. Patricia is Daniel's mother. She lives in a beautiful colonial house in one of the older neighborhoods of Charlotte, the kind with big oak trees and brick mailboxes and a homeowners association that fines you for the wrong color front door. Patricia had been a school teacher for 30 years. And she had that particular way of speaking to you, like you were slightly behind on the reading. Everything she said was polite. Every single thing she said had a second meaning underneath it. The first time I met her, she looked at me for a long moment and said, "Oh, a nurse. How practical of you." Daniel always did like to take care of people. I smiled and said thank you. It took me 2 days to realize she had not paid me a compliment at all. Here is what I did not know that day, and what I would spend years slowly learning. Before me, there had been Vanessa. Vanessa and Daniel had dated for almost 3 years in their mid-20s. Vanessa came from the same neighborhood as Patricia. Her parents belonged to the same country club. Her mother and Patricia played bridge together every Thursday. In Patricia's mind, Vanessa was not just Daniel's girlfriend. Vanessa was the plan, the merger, the daughter-in-law who would keep everything in the family exactly the way Patricia wanted it. Daniel ended it with Vanessa about a year before he met me. He never made it dramatic. He just told me once that they wanted different things. That Vanessa wanted a life that looked good in photos, more than a life that felt good to live in. He said it without any bitterness. He had moved on completely. Patricia had not. Now, the warning signs. Looking back, they were everywhere. At the time I told myself I was being sensitive. The first one came at our engagement dinner. Daniel had proposed on the greenway by the river, and both families gathered at a restaurant to celebrate. Patricia stood up to give a little toast, and she raised her glass and said, "To Daniel, my son has such a big heart. He has always been so good at making everyone feel special, even when it is only for a season." The table went quiet for half a second. Then everyone laughed politely and drank. I sat there with my face frozen in a smile, and Daniel squeezed my hand under the table, and I told myself I had imagined the sting in it. The second sign came while we were planning the wedding. I mentioned to Patricia that we were thinking about a small chapel in Asheville, in the mountains, something intimate. Patricia set down her tea and said, "That is a lovely idea for a first wedding." Very rustic. She let the words "first wedding" hang in the air like she was doing me a favor by not saying more. The third sign was the one I should have listened to. It was 3 weeks before the wedding. I was at Patricia's house helping fold programs, and I went to use the bathroom in the hallway. On my way, I passed her office, and the door was open, and I saw a photograph on her desk in a silver frame. It was Daniel, younger, maybe 25, with his arm around a woman I did not recognize, blonde, tall, wearing a green dress laughing at something off camera. I did not know it yet, but I was looking at Vanessa. I asked Daniel about it that night, as gently as I could. I said, "Your mom has a picture of you and some woman on her desk. Blonde, green dress." Daniel went still for a second. Then he said, "That is Vanessa, my ex. I will ask her to take it down." He did ask. Patricia said, "Of course, so sorry." She had not even noticed it was still there. It was just an old frame she had never gotten around to sorting. And a week later, when I visited, the picture was gone. I felt relieved. I felt like the problem had been solved. I want to tell you something I have learned since then. When someone shows you who they are and then quickly hides it again because you noticed, that is not the problem going away. That is the problem learning to be more careful around you. We got married on a Saturday in October. The leaves in the mountains were on fire with color. My dad walked me down the aisle and cried the whole way. Daniel could not stop grinning. It was, without exaggeration, the best day of my life. There is a photograph from that day. The confetti one I mentioned at the very start. And when we got the prints back, I had it framed, and I gave copies to both families as a gift. My mom hung hers in the living room in Dayton, right in the center, where you cannot miss it. Patricia hung hers in the front hallway, and for about a year, every time we visited, it was there. I would see it and feel like I belonged, like I had passed some kind of test, like the shadow was finally behind us. I was so wrong. The photos started disappearing slowly. That is the thing about this kind of cruelty. It does not happen all at once. It happens so gradually that you doubt your own eyes. The first time I noticed, it was a Sunday dinner in the spring. I walked into the hallway, and the confetti photo was gone. In its place was an old picture of Daniel as a boy, holding a fishing rod. I told myself Patricia was just rotating her photos, the way people do. I mentioned it lightly to Daniel in the car. He shrugged and said his mom moved pictures around all the time. I let it go. A few months later, there was another dinner. This time, there was a new frame on the hallway wall. A photo of Daniel at his college graduation, and standing next to him, half in the frame, was the corner of a green dress and a woman's blonde hair. You could not see her face, but I recognized that dress. My stomach dropped, but I told myself it is a graduation photo. Maybe Vanessa was just there. Maybe there is no other version. I did not want to be the wife who made a scene over a photograph. So I said nothing. That silence, my own silence, is something I have had to forgive myself for. Then came Thanksgiving. The whole extended family was there. Patricia hosts Thanksgiving every year, and it is a big production, catered turkey. The good china, place cards in Patricia's perfect handwriting. Daniel and I arrived a little late because I had worked a shift that morning. I was tired and happy and carrying a pie. I walked through the front door into the hallway, and I stopped so suddenly that the woman behind me almost bumped into me. The entire wall had been redone. Where my wedding photo used to be, where the confetti and my grandmother's veil used to be, there were now 3 framed pictures. All of them were Daniel, and in all 3 of them, he was with Vanessa. Vanessa in the green dress. Vanessa on a beach with Daniel's arms around her. Vanessa and Daniel and Patricia together at what looked like Christmas. All 3 of them in matching sweaters. Looking like the family portrait Patricia had always wanted. My wedding photo was gone, not moved.
Gone.
It was as if I had been erased from the wall, and someone else had been painted in over the empty space. I stood there holding a pie in a house full of people, and I could not breathe. I need you to understand the next part, because it is the part that hurt more than the photos ever did. Daniel's brother Marcus walked past me in the hallway and said, "Hey, Rebecca, you can put the pie in the kitchen." He did not even glance at the wall. Daniel's Aunt Carol came out of the dining room and told me how nice it was to see me and asked about my drive. She was standing 3 feet from a photograph of my husband kissing another woman on a beach. And she said nothing. Cousins, uncles, Patricia's sister. Every one of them had walked through that hallway. Every one of them had set down a coat or a dish or a bottle of wine right in front of that wall. And every single one of them had decided, together, without a word, that the safest thing to do was pretend they did not see it. I found Daniel in the kitchen. I could barely get the words out. I said, "Have you seen the hallway?" He had not. He walked out there with me, and I watched his face change. I watched him understand. And here is where the second betrayal happened. The one inside my own marriage. Daniel looked at the wall for a long moment. And then he lowered his voice and said, "Okay, let us just get through dinner. I will talk to her later. Please do not make this a whole thing today." Not in front of everybody. Not in front of everybody. That was the moment something cracked in me. Not broke.
Cracked.
Because I realized my own husband's first instinct was to protect the peace of the room instead of protecting me. His first instinct was to ask the person who had been humiliated to please be quiet about it so that no one would be uncomfortable. I sat through that entire Thanksgiving dinner. I passed the green beans. I complimented the turkey. I answered questions about work. And the whole time, in the next room, a wall of photographs was telling everyone in that family the same story. That I was temporary. That the real daughter-in-law had blonde hair and a green dress. That Patricia was simply waiting for the mistake to correct itself. I did not cry at that table. I want you to know that. I saved it for the car. That night, in our own home, Daniel and I had the first real fight of our marriage. He kept saying his mother was difficult, that this was just how she was, that she did not mean anything by it. I asked him how a person accidentally takes down a wedding photo and hangs up 3 pictures of an ex-girlfriend. He did not have an answer for that, because there is no answer for that.
What I said to him that night is the same thing I want to say to anyone listening who has ever been in this position.
I said, Daniel, I am not asking you to hate your mother. I am asking you to stop hiding behind the word difficult. Difficult is when someone forgets your birthday. This is a decision. Somebody planned this.
And every person in your family agreed to say nothing. He got quiet,
and then he said the thing that finally told me he was starting to wake up. He said, "You are right."
And I do not actually know why she has pictures of Vanessa that recent. That sentence stuck in my head like a splinter.
Pictures that recent. Because two of those photos, the beach one and the Christmas sweater one, were not old. Daniel and Vanessa had broken up years ago.
The beach photo showed Daniel with a short haircut he had gotten only about a year before.
And the Christmas photo, with Patricia in it, looked like it had been taken within the last 2 years.
Which meant that during the entire time Daniel and I had been dating and engaged and married, his mother had been keeping in touch with his ex-girlfriend, meeting her,
taking pictures with her at Christmas. That was the moment this stopped being about a wall of photos and started being about something much bigger. I did not sleep much that week. I kept turning it over. If Patricia was still seeing Vanessa, why? What was the point? And more than that, why would Vanessa go along with it? Vanessa was the ex. She had moved on too. As far as anyone knew.
Why would a grown woman spend her Christmases in matching sweaters with the mother of an ex she had not dated in years?
I decided I needed to understand the truth before I did anything I could not take back. Not to spy. To understand.
Because I had learned my lesson about staying quiet and letting my own eyes lie to me.
So I did something simple. I looked Vanessa up. It did not take long. Her profile was public, and what I found made my hands go cold all over again. Vanessa's recent photos told a story. There was one from about 8 months earlier,
tagged at a restaurant in Charlotte, and in the background, blurry but unmistakable,
was Patricia. There was another from Vanessa's own page. A photo of a beautiful floral arrangement,
with a caption thanking my second mom P for the birthday surprise.
Second mom P. Patricia. And then there was the post that made everything click into place. It was from 2 months before our Thanksgiving. A photo of Vanessa in a nice dress, at what was clearly a party, holding a glass of champagne. And the caption said, "Big changes coming. Sometimes the right people find their way back.
Trust the timing. Trust the timing. Right people find their way back." I sat there staring at my phone, and I understood all at once
what my mother-in-law had been doing. This was not just an insult. This was a campaign.
Patricia had never accepted that Daniel married me. In her mind, it was an interruption in the story she had already written, and she had been quietly, patiently, over a period of years, keeping Vanessa close, keeping the friendship alive, keeping the door open, waiting. The photo wall was not a moment of pettiness. It was a message. To Daniel, to the whole family, and to me. It said, "This is who belongs here, and this is who does not." I showed Daniel everything. I want to be honest that I was afraid to.
Some part of me was terrified he would look at those pictures of him and Vanessa and feel something.
But I had promised myself no more silence. So I laid it all out on the kitchen table. The public photos, the captions, the second Mom P. Trust the timing. Daniel went through them one by one. His jaw was tight. And when he finished, he did something I will never forget. He put his hand flat on the table, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "I need you to hear me. I do not want Vanessa. I have never wanted Vanessa since the day I met you. But I have spent my whole life excusing my mother. And I did it again on Thanksgiving, and I am ashamed of that. That is over now." Then he did the thing that saved our marriage. He said, "I am going to handle this, but I am not going to handle it quietly. Not this time. You have been made quiet in my family for 4 years. That is done. Now, I want to be very clear about what happened next."
Because this is not one of those stories where I did something dramatic and cruel and it all worked out.
Real life does not work that way.
And the truth is, I would not have respected myself if I had gone down that road.
What actually happened was slower and harder, and I think in the end, stronger.
Daniel called his mother and told her that he and I were going to come by that Sunday.
Just the two of us to talk. Patricia said, "Of course,"
in that bright teacher voice, like nothing was wrong at all. We arrived.
The photo wall was still up.
3 pictures of Vanessa in the hallway of the house where my husband grew up.
We sat down in the living room.
Patricia offered us sweet tea like it was any other visit. And Daniel,
calm and steady in the way I had fallen in love with, said, "Mom,
I want you to walk us out to the hallway and tell me what happened to Rebecca's wedding photo." Patricia gave a light little laugh and said she had simply been redecorating.
That she liked to change things seasonally. That Rebecca was reading far too much into a few frames. Daniel did not raise his voice. He said,
"You replaced my wife's wedding photo with 3 pictures of my ex-girlfriend.
One of them has you in it. From a Christmas that happened after I was already married. So before you say another word about redecorating,
I need you to understand that I know you have been seeing Vanessa this entire time. I have seen the posts. Second Mom P. Trust the timing. I know."
"Mom." The bright voice dropped away. And what came out from underneath it was the truth.
And the truth was uglier than I had even imagined. Patricia said, and I remember this word for word, Vanessa was right for this family.
She understood us. She came from something.
I kept the friendship because I always believed that when you got tired of playing house,
you would remember what you were supposed to have.
I was keeping a place for you.
Someone in this family had to. When you got tired of playing house.
She said it in front of me.
She had spent 4 years treating my marriage like a phase.
My presence like a clerical error.
And she said it to my face without even flinching. And in a strange way, I was almost grateful, because there was no more pretending now. It was finally out loud. I found my voice. I did not scream. I said, "Patricia, I have folded your programs and hosted your holidays and called you when you were sick. And this whole time you were keeping a seat warm for the day my marriage failed. I need you to hear me clearly. It is not going to fail. And you are the one who is going to have to decide what that means for you." Daniel stood up.
He walked to the hallway and one by one, he took down the 3 photos of Vanessa. He set them face down on the entry table.
And then he said the thing that finally made it real. He said,
"Here is what is going to happen. My wedding photo goes back on this wall today, or Rebecca and I are not coming back to this house.
Not for Thanksgiving, not for Christmas, not for anything.
And I am going to tell the rest of the family exactly why."
Because they all watched this happen to my wife and decided their comfort mattered more than she did. Patricia's face changed when he said he would tell the family.
Because that was the thing she truly cared about. The appearance of things. The wall was never really about Vanessa. It was about control. And about the story the family agreed to tell. And Daniel had just threatened to tell a different story out loud. She did not put the photo back that day. She was too proud. We left with the issue unresolved. And I honestly thought that might be the end of the relationship entirely. But here is where the consequences started to unfold. And they unfolded exactly the way they should.
Daniel did what he said he would do. He called his brother Marcus.
He called his Aunt Carol. He called the cousins. He told each of them plainly what had been on that wall and what his mother had admitted. And he asked each of them the same question. He asked, "You saw it.
Why did you say nothing to Rebecca?" And here is what I learned about silence. Once one person refuses to keep it, it falls apart fast. Marcus was the first to break. He called me directly, which took real courage. He said, "Rebecca, I saw the wall on Thanksgiving.
I knew it was wrong. And I told myself it was not my business.
And that Mom would make my life miserable if I said anything.
That was cowardly. I am sorry.
You deserved better from all of us." Aunt Carol cried on the phone. She admitted that the whole family had known for years that Patricia was still close with Vanessa.
And that they had all just decided not to mention it. Because that was easier than dealing with Patricia.
They had built an entire wall of silence around me, brick by brick, out of nothing but their own desire to avoid discomfort. One by one,
the family started to understand what they had actually done. Not by hanging photos, by watching, by choosing the easy, quiet over the hard truth. And a few of them, the better ones, decided they did not want to be those people anymore.
The consequence for Patricia was not that anyone screamed at her or cut her out in a blaze of drama.
It was quieter and much harder to bear.
It was that the family she had tried to control started making decisions without her.
Marcus hosted Christmas that year instead of Patricia, for the first time in 20 years. And he made a point of inviting me to help plan it. Aunt Carol started calling me on my own just to talk.
The story Patricia had spent years writing, the one where I was temporary,
simply stopped being true, and everyone could see it. Daniel and I made a decision together that I am at peace with. We did not cut Patricia off completely, because that is not who I want to be.
And because Daniel did not want to spend the rest of his life carrying that kind of ending.
But we set a boundary that we have held to ever since.
We told Patricia that she was welcome in our lives when she could treat our marriage as real and permanent.
And not a minute before, we stopped visiting the house with the hallway. We stopped attending the events she used as a stage. We let her feel the space where we used to be. It took almost a year. And then one afternoon,
a package arrived at our door. Inside was our confetti wedding photo, the original in a new frame, and a card in Patricia's perfect handwriting.
It did not say everything I might have wanted it to say. She was never going to be a woman who fell apart in apology. But it said this: I was keeping a seat for the wrong person. I see that now. I would like to keep one for you, if you will let me. I cried when I read it. Not because it fixed everything, because it did not. Vanessa is gone from all our lives now.
And Patricia and I will probably never be truly close. But that card was Patricia finally saying out loud on paper that I was real, that I belonged. It was 4 years too late, but it was real. We hung the confetti photo in our own home, in our own hallway, not because we needed Patricia's wall anymore, but because we wanted the story we look at every morning to be the true one.
Here is what I want you to take from all of this, because I did not go through it just to tell a sad story.
The photographs were never the real betrayal. Anyone can move a frame.
The real betrayal was the silence.
It was 14 people looking at something cruel and deciding that their own comfort was worth more than my dignity.
And I have come to believe that silence, that agreement to look away, is how almost every quiet cruelty in a family survives. It does not need everyone to be cruel. It only needs everyone to say nothing. So if you are ever standing in a hallway in your own life, looking at something that is wrong, do not be the person who walks past and asks where to put the pie. Be the one who says out loud, I see this.
And it is not okay. You might be the only wall of silence that finally breaks. And you have no idea how much that one sentence might mean to the person who has been made invisible, and to anyone who is being made to feel temporary in a family that is supposed to be yours.
I want you to hear me. You do not have to earn your place by staying quiet. Being loved should never require you to disappear. Now, I want to hear from you. Here's my question. And I really do read the comments. If you had walked into that hallway on Thanksgiving and seen that wall, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace? Or would you have said something right there at the table? Tell me honestly. I think we can learn a lot from each other's answers. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. If this story meant something to you, take a second to subscribe, because I share stories like this one every week about the quiet ways people hurt each other and the quiet strength it takes to stand back up. I will see you in the next one.